Well, now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, who is our local scratch builder, who is scratch building his total layout, and he's doing a fantastic job. And tonight he's starting a new project for his layout, a depot. So Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank all the support people, Pat, Phil, and the others. I started a new project here, a new depot, and I'll give you the reasons here in a moment. So this is a depot for my Shantytown. I professed in a show about a month ago that I had an old freight house that I scratch built that I really never liked. And my first inclination was to rebuild, make this into something that I could tolerate. But then I put it in place in Shantytown, and it just really didn't fit in. And it doesn't, it's sort of a freight house anyway. It's not really a depot per se. So I'm gonna go ahead and build a specific depot for Shantytown. And I'm going to show you a couple of this is a small depot that I scratch built and featured on the show here about a month ago. I show this because of the color scheme, the yellow siding, the green batten down below, and then the wood trim. This is the kind of look that I'm looking for, but something different. And then I have my big depot, the Rustic buff depot, which is not on the layout yet. It's in storage, but it too is yellow and green and trimmed out in brown. So I thought I might go ahead and just build another depot unique to these two and use this color scheme. And this will be a two-part series. I'm about halfway through building this. So like all of my scratch builds, I start with a piece of aircraft grade plywood, and then I put a grid on there, 1-inch grid. This is the extent of my design. The rest of it just out of my head. So first thing I did is I put a foundation around. I'll show you the materials I used in a moment, but I used a brick foundation, 180 degrees all the way around this thing. Those strips were to bring the support level up to the same level as the brick. You'll see in a moment here what I'm doing here. But basically, I glued these very fine strips of wood in there, and then I placed a larger strip to bring it up to the height of the brick. My scale lumber was too short for to match the height of that brick. So these are the materials that I used. I have professed my liking for this Monster Works material. My foundation is made out of this old brick sheet. I cut about 4 bricks wide on there in strips. And this is a new material they have. It's a wood siding. You'll see some close-ups of this later on. This is a fantastic material. It has great highlights and detail. And I'm going to use it for the flooring, for the decking of this model. It's just a beautiful material. And this is my go-to Mount Albert basswood sheets. This is the clapboard for O scale. So there's the Monster Works brick, which I've cut into 4 brick high and cut it on 45s. And then I go back and I file this so it has the appearances that it's all one big piece. And this is the plywood base. This will get inserted into the foam, so the only thing visible will be the foundation. This is the siding. I've sketched out what I envision for the depot. It's going to be relatively small, and it's higher than normal. I wanted this old-fashioned depot look about it. I always mark my clapboard with up on there because I have assembled these scratch builds. And occasionally I'll reverse a siding and then have to tear the model apart. So right up front from now on, I always put up on there unless it's obvious. So here's the cutouts. This is the clapboard siding. Basically, the front and rear are the same and the sides are the same. It's uniform. And like all my scratch builds, I brace everything with 1/4 inch scale 12 by 12, but it's really 1/4 inch material, basswood. It's inexpensive to do and prevents any warpage, particularly in the painting process if you're using water-based acrylics. You also notice I'm using wood glue. I'm trying to get away from super glue. So I'm using yellow glue. Here's the structure getting built up. You can see I brace the crap out of it as usual. Again, this takes very little time and makes for a very robust model. And you will see no warpage from now to the next millennium. And there's that up, just so I didn't make that mistake. There's the looking at the outside. One thing you want to try and do is match this clapboard siding so that you don't have an offset. Even though you put trim on here, it's best to have a nice look where this is on the same plane. And there is that siding, and I have an enlargement here for you. I mean, look at the detail these guys have laser etched the flooring to have wood grain. It's just amazing material. And when you have a material this well detailed with this laser etched wood grain, you don't really want to paint it. You want to stain it with an alcohol wash. You'll see later on that I did a pretty interesting job with that, just using various colors of alcohol wash. A paint might fill this in or mask the laser etchings. Really a neat material, Monster Works. I strongly recommend you try this. There's approximately where I want the main structure to be. There will be a pavilion, if you will, out coming off here and off here. So there'll be two roofs that are at a slightly below the roof line here, one going off to the left, one going off to the right. So there'll be open baggage areas, if you will. So there's another view. So now this is where I've established this is going to go, and I've glued it down with wood glue. Now I've begun the painting process, and I frequently refer to these base coats as obnoxious colors. So this is a hay yellow, just this inexpensive acrylic craft paint. Again, this is the base color. I've put 2 coats on here, and I let it dry overnight before I really did anything to it. There's a little side view. See how these match? There's some more detail, that flooring. My other signature is I paint the inside of these structures black, just because I don't detail the inside of them. So if you do look through a window, and in this case you won't be able to, as you'll see later, you won't see anything. But I paint everything black. And I've also put a base coat of the on the brick here. I used a rust wash here, but I went back and later used a Tuscan scale coat because I wasn't really happy with that color. It looked too pink. Now I've begun the weathering process. I've put an alcohol wash on here. tone that color down a little bit. And just working around the building. For the window selection, I'm using Grant Line, these Victorian windows with this triangular pediment. Grant Line does not come with pre-cut clear acetate windows. You have to cut your own. And just for my amusement, you have to cut it round for it to fit in here. So as you'll see later on, I rough cut the clear plastic, and then with a file, I rounded it. And I pulled that off. I made them in two pieces, one piece here and one piece there. Anyway, that's not a very good photograph. These are what I use. I also, I sprayed them with an automobile primer. Then I sprayed them with a emerald green, just with a rattle can. Here's a little bit more of the thing. And again, these are still, I consider, base colors. So, and it's very rough at this point. But I've trimmed everything out here with scale 1x4s this time. I thought 1x6s would be too large for this small little structure. I painted this with a green that's close to this. As you'll see, I'll go back later and paint. These will get painted the same color, but that spray emerald green is a nice base coat. And these window insertions I just pulled off of Google, brought them into PowerPoint. They're old-time curtains. Then I put in a blind behind it and printed them out, glued them with canopy glue to the reverse of the window. Again, we're still pretty rough here, but you're getting an idea what this is going to look like. Yeah, there's the paper and the canopy glue. I did go back when it was all dry and I sprayed dull coat in there just to seal that paper up. I don't know why I do that. I want it to last 10,000 years, I suppose. There's another look of the same thing. There's that paper again. Here's the roof. I ran out of 16th inch plywood. I didn't feel like making a run to Hobby Lobby or Menards or Lowe's, and I had this N scale siding that I've had for 30 years, and it's very thin. And I thought it's basswood. So what I did is this is the underside of the roof. You're not going to see it, this siding anyway. See a nice detail, I suppose, if you look real hard. This is the perimeter of the roof. You'll see the black. It's on the other side. So the idea is when you look up here, you'll just see black. I've begun additional weathering, trying to balance these windows with this. At this point, it's too white and chalky, but that's one of the weathering steps. Oh, and here you can see I've colored these boards individually. We'll have a close-up later, but these are different alcohol washes: grayish, a blue-gray, a black, a brown. Just randomly, that's a better shot in focus over here to the left. Randomly painted these boards, different colors of alcohol wash. It's a really nice effect. Because they're washes, you pick up that laser etching, the grain material. I went back later with a Q-tip and removed the smudge from the windows with alcohol, pure alcohol. There's a nice shot of that decking material. I just think it's gorgeous stuff. There it is. Tell me that doesn't look marvelous. And there's no effort on your part other than staining it. That's out of the box, if you will. Look at that, look at that etching. I mean, it's just amazing. I get excited over the little things, you know. These are the shingles. I use these on one of my 3 Shantytown models. I put them on a large piece of cardboard, tape them down, and then I hit them with a primer here. The truth of the matter is, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to do this again with brown. I'm not going to use gray shingles. So this is a busted project there. There, I painted the roof black just to seal everything up before I put the Elmer's glue on and the shingles. And it's subtle, but I've scraped off a lot of that white chalky look to it with a wire brush, a brass brush. That's the finished model in here, the center here. These windows aren't quite finished here, but that's the final look right there.
That's neat.
That's it. Any questions this evening?
You just need to nail holes.
Yeah, I could go back, right?
Yeah.
All right, next time. So part,
It's
Yeah,
not
we-
a question, Tom, but I also agree with Monster Model Works. Jimmy Simmons does some of the best laser etching of anybody in the business, and I've used many of his products for years. It's just, he does wonderful work.
it's really I think it's the best brick in the business, and that flooring is unique. Nobody makes, or siding they call it, wood siding. Nobody makes that.
Yeah, I've used it for flooring a lot more than siding.
And he also has concrete block, which I've used too.
Yeah.
They're just very nice materials, and he's always running a 20% sale, so you just watch for that. And he focuses around holidays to have these 20%. I always restock myself at that point. So part 2 next week, I shall have that structure finished. Yeah.
Tom, let me ask you this. What was the hardest part of building that building up to this point?
This one I really spent a lot of time with the weathering, trying to get the colors right. Normally that's a simple process for me. For some reason it was a little challenging this time around. I just wasn't getting, even though I used my tried and true base coat, scratch it, alcohol wash, dry brush white, it just was coming out chalky, like a too white. And I kept going back with the wire brush, and I would add the base color on there. You know, I just kept playing around with it till I got the right look. But that's the first time in a long time I didn't achieve the look that I wanted. But everything else was just smooth sailing. There wasn't any real, but you know, that took me a better part of a half a day to get right.
Yeah.
And I think it's all gonna, and the shingles, which I have right here, these are the
Yeah.
gray ones. I'm not going to use these. These are, I'm going to start all over with the shingles and make a brown. So that'll be next week.
Well, thank you so very much. It's a gorgeous looking model.
Thank you very much. Yeah.